warmer weather. Okay, enough of that. Okay, quiet down. Welcome everybody again to the Oregon City Business Alliance June Forum. Today we have the pleasure of having 4 outstanding individuals that have either been elected or appointed to their various positions. They're going to be sharing their vision, their priorities, some of the challenges that they've anticipated are going to have to be dealt with in the weeks, months, and years to come, and some of the challenges that they've already overcome. We can't thank the elected and appointed officials enough. So many of us see them at public hearings and think, well, that's all they do. But in reality, there's so much more that goes into being one of these individuals, to do a lot of research on their own, but also have a lot of meetings in executive session or working with staff to have a better understanding of what are the most critical issues that their communities are facing, not only today, but in the future. So again, we want to thank all of our panelists today. With that being said, I'd like to thank our sponsor for our event, Erin Starr with Farmers Insurance. Erin, could you stand up, please? We appreciate her. She's on our board and on our marketing committee, and we always enjoy Erin's participation in all of our discussions. So let me introduce some of our elected officials that we have. We have Ben West with Clackamas County. Adam Marl with Oregon City Commission. And we may still get Mark Scholl and Paul Savas. They signed up, so sometimes the county commissioners wander in a little later. Mike Mitchell, who was appointed to fill Mayor Denise McGriff's position, her seat when she got elected to be mayor, so Mike. And our assessor, where is he sitting? They're all right there, okay. Bronson, and is it Rueda? Yes. Bronson Rueda. Thank you, Bronson. Okay, I'm trying to think if there's any other things that we want to announce before we get into their presentations, but I can't think of any right offhand. So we're going to start out with County Commissioner Ben West. And just a reminder, the green cards on the tables are for questions. So each one of the panelists will go ahead and make their presentations, and then at the end, we'll open it up for questions and answers. So feel free to go ahead and fill those out, and Sherry or someone else from the Oregon City Business Alliance will come by and pick those out. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. My name is Ben West. I'm the new kid on the block, I like to say. Just about 6 months now, I've been sworn in as a Clackamas County Commissioner, and I'm having a blast learning how county government works, and I believe implementing bold and policies that are taking Clackamas County in a positive direction. So it's a great opportunity to tell you a little bit about myself, get to know everybody here in the room, my background, where I come from, what makes me tick, and the goals moving forward as we try to do good policy work here in Clackamas. They gave me a pointer. I've never used one of these, so either arrow? The big button. Okay, here we go. So I got my start into politics in 2013, 2012. My husband and I were Oregon's marriage equality plaintiffs. So back then it wasn't legal for my family to exist. We were foster parents at that time. We took care of some of Oregon's most vulnerable children, and we worked with kids that couldn't maintain in a normal foster care home. They had some trauma issues and some challenges where they needed a little bit more hands-on 24/7 care. So we jumped into the deep end of parenting, and that's how Paul and I got started. We took care of those foster care kids. We worked with an organization called Morrison Hand in Hand Services that contracted with the state, and we had a number of young people from all different type of backgrounds and different challenges come through our home. We were approached by some allies and friends to sue the state of Oregon to overturn Oregon's ban on same-sex marriage. That was Measure 36 that defined marriage between one man, one woman. We were trying to build a family, and we just thought that that wasn't fair or equal, so we challenged that lawsuit in federal court, and we won. And we overturned Oregon's ban on same-sex marriage. Shortly after that, our adoption finalized with our son, Jaquan, who now goes to Westland High School. Which I will always take a moment to talk about Westland football. Sorry if you guys have kids and other programs, but we are the reigning state champions. Go Lions. And my son just texted me on the way here, says, Dad, I had a great football workout. They're already working hard. They're on the field getting ready for his senior year. And so I'm super proud to say that my kid was part of Oregon's broken foster care system, and now because he has family, community, and he put his roots deep in Clackamas County, he's working towards a Division I football scholarship. So community matters, and that's part of my family story. I wanted to continue public service, so I was trying to find any avenue how to do that and how to be of best use to my community. I ran for the Wilsonville City Council, and I won in 2018. I did not run for re-election. That's why I'm here before you guys today, because I'm your newest county commissioner. I still work at OHSU as a heart nurse. I work on people's tickers. I still pull 2 or 3 shifts, about 24 hours a month. I will squeak it into my schedule and go put on the scrubs and work on people's hearts. And then we also founded an organization, my family, called Oregon Foster Families First. We've helped advocate and pass groundbreaking legislation for kids in foster care. The one that we've been working on for 4 years or 6 years now is a tuition bill for kids in foster care. What happened in 2012 is the legislature said, hey, if you age out of the foster care system and you qualify for college, we will pay for your in-state tuition. It's a great bill, a bipartisan bill in 2012. The problem is you have an older child that spent a significant amount of their life in foster care and got adopted. They would have to pick between being adopted or having their in-state tuition paid for. We didn't think that that was just or fair, so we now, because of House Senate Bill 448, thank you to Senator Bottom in Clackamas County, we got that amended, so now if you find your forever family, you can still get your free in-state tuition and go through a 4-year university, and you don't have to pick between college and your forever family anymore. That's really good policy that we worked on through our organization and passed this cycle we're very proud of. And you see a picture of me there, that's May at Camp Withicum. I am a new naval officer, so I'll be also working, being a weekend warrior in the Naval Reserves. I'm a lieutenant junior grade in the U.S. Navy, and I will continue to do nursing work at that capacity. Also, it allows me to help keep my license active as a nurse and still be a county commissioner. So I promised my husband I will not get a 4th job. Yeah, so that's a little bit about me. I'm excited to serve in the United States Armed Services. I found out when I was there that I got sworn in on Armed Services Day, and some of you in this room were there, and I appreciate you attending, but it also turns out my grandpa served out of there in the Second World War and did 3 tours in New Guinea in the Pacific. So I didn't realize that, but it was a really cool family moment, come full circle between me and my grandfather. So that's a little bit about my background. These are my priorities. I ran on these things. I believe on these things. Clackamas County has very much made public safety a #1 priority. We do that in all facets of public safety. Part of that is the courthouse being built. It's also, we just passed a budget where we allocated the largest amount of funds in Clackamas County's history towards our sheriff's department. And we are always looking to make sure that people feel safe in Clackamas County, they can enjoy clean and vibrant spaces, and that Clackamas County is attractive not just to families but to businesses across the region, because we are going to make sure that our #1 priority as an elected government is that we keep people safe. If your local government isn't doing that job, then they're not doing what is most important, and what should be preeminent is public safety, and that we have a well-trained professional public safety arm that is available to anybody in the community, and so we're proud of that. we're a no tolling county in Clackamas County. I don't know if you guys heard. Commissioner Savas just walked in the room and I don't know, in my personal opinion, I felt bad for the ODOT bureaucrat that was standing behind him when he was talking about the injustice of Clackamas County maybe suffering with tolling. I think tolling is one of the largest threats that Clackamas County has faced in a generation. I think it would cause immense harm and gridlock to our local communities. I think it's inequitable. I don't think that I think the diversion would cause safety issues. I think it's ill-planned, not well thought out. And I know I can speak for myself that I am 100% opposed to tolling existing highways and byways that my grandfather already paid for. So I will continue to do that fight with, I saw a couple of the commissioners just walk in. Commissioner Savas is in the building, and Commissioner Scholl is here too. Thank you. But I know that we have been very unified and strategic. One of the things that, like, you know, I kind of feel people kind of get in their niche, and I'm kind of in that local government niche of service. And it was really awesome to see Clackamas County be and our local cities like Oregon City and West Linn in a unified effort, the reason why we got the pause from Governor Kotek. You know, we technically couldn't stop it or implement it, but we really found an innovative way to fight tolling in a way that allowed us to kind of focus on what matters in the policy moving forward. Our staff came out with about a 40-page technical document that really was the meat that allowed the Clackamas caucus in a bipartisan way to go not just to the legislature, but go to the governor to allow us to get that pause. It's not enough. We have more work to do, but it is an important victory for local government standing up for local communities. And that effort, that expense, and the way we had to move quickly because ODOT would not allow us to, in just the smallest ask, extend the comment period that we just went through from 60 days to 90 days, but our staff worked overtime with our local cities, and that team effort of all 16 cities, your county, galvanizing together to do the work that is obvious to protect Clackamas County, I think really moved the ball, and we'll continue to do that work moving forward. We're continuing to work. We just got done at C4, and we had all 16 cities there, and the synergy in the room that weekend was, I'm told as a new guy, has never happened before in the history of C4. Partisan politics dropped aside, and you just saw your local leaders bouncing ideas, and the energy in the room, and the ability to be vision casting, and to say, hey, this is how we're going to help Wilsonville. This is how we're going to help West Linn, or this is the next step as we go and lobby to the legislature and to the governor. So your cities, your local leaders, your county is really being innovative, strategic, and unified in this effort in a way that is very, very unusual. So I hope that you guys see that as we continue to do that work moving forward. Supportive housing service funding, we just allocated $58 million towards this effort. What was it, last week? I think it was last week, right? $58 million last week. Our commissioners are a little bit late because today they were discussing there's actually an overcollection of taxes more than we thought was going to be available to us. So we're continuing to figure out how to spend those dollars. We're doing, and I'm going to speak about this in a minute, through a recovery-oriented system of care. You'll hear me at least talk about that all the time. It's the worldview and the framework in which we will make our policy decisions. So I'll speak to that in a little bit. But we're trying to take care of those that are struggling with addiction, homelessness, and mental health issues in Clackamas County, and do that in an innovative way that's locally tailored to our community. Measure 110, this is just the beginning, but we just put out an advisory vote. I think Measure 110 is an objective failure. And we've never experienced anything like fentanyl in our streets. Now, as a nurse, I can tell you a little bit about fentanyl because I've given it in a medical setting. A couple grams, a couple flecks the size of little grains of salt is enough to kill one person, potentially. Just a couple little flecks or grains of salt can kill one person. When I did a 14-hour ride along with our sheriff's office, I saw what's called blueies by the bag. And they're these little blue pills that are basically synthetic counterfeit fentanyl. And I did a 14-hour ride along, and it was everywhere. I had to just sit down with my son, like maybe many of you, and talk about like what happens if you see this in your school and what is Narcan. I've never thought I'd had to have that discussion with my child. It is changing the game in recovery services. How somebody recovers from fentanyl is significantly different than other substances, and the time frame to get them stabilized and through a detox is significantly longer. It's hollowing out people's lives and our communities up and down the West Coast. This advisory vote says, should basically the Oregon legislature do something to actually fix this in a meaningful way, to specifically to help how this impacts our juveniles in Clackamas County, and or should the governor call a special emergency session because we're in crisis? We're trying on a local level, same kind of mindset with tolling, how can we effectively, within our scope and boundary as electeds, put pressure on the legislature to not abdicate their role, and we don't have the time to just maybe see if Measure 110 works. People are dying every day on our streets, and so with urgency, we're trying to put that local pressure on the legislature and the governor. There's more to come out about Measure 110, about some ways that we feel like that we can use our autonomous authority as a local entity to push back against Measure 110. There's more coming down the line, but this is just that within this first 6 months of this new board, putting that out there to the voters so the voters can say, hey, we are advising that the legislature and the governor doesn't abdicate their role any longer in this issue. One last thing on Measure 110, the problem with it is that we want everybody to get treatment and recovery. People who want it deserve it. I believe that is a factual statement, but we can't remove the real pressures that induce people into care when they no longer have the rational decision-making processes to actually get the care. And in this country, it's not okay or morally right to watch people rot on our streets through drug-induced psychosis, despair, and hopelessness. We just don't have the time to allow it any longer. Behavioral health and addictions recovery is something I'm passionate about. That's why I ran for this seat. I'm a nurse. I can't do this recovery work or public health work as a Wilsonville City Councilor, though I loved that job and I love my community. But as a nurse, I can bring those skill sets and talents to the county because we deal with those issues here in the county. Here's the resolution. I won't expect anybody to read it, one, because it's in granular print, and two, it's available to you online. But I'm going to pull a couple things out. Sometimes people say, Commissioner, a resolution from another governmental body is nothing but gobbledygook words, and we've all tired of resolutions. You aren't actually doing anything with a resolution. I think this one is unique because leadership, when there's a void of it, has to stake its worldview. The worldview is the philosophy in which we will implement all these policies, spend tens of millions of dollars, like the SHS dollars. What is the worldview that we are using to inform our work in our community? This is our worldview on a recovery-oriented system of care. The pillars of this are prevention, intervention, treatment, and recovery for those with addiction and mental health issues. And we believe that everybody in this county has the right to safe, vibrant, and public spaces, while we also make sure that we are being innovative and pushing the envelope on how we do recovery. We find the gaps in the continuum of care, and we fill them on a local level. And we ask all our stakeholders to do the same with us. Like Dan's a perfect example of this with the Navigation Center as a small businessman and somebody who cares about the issue. Then it's the community college with the education piece. Then maybe it's it's our recovery-oriented system of care and our outreach people like Loved One and Father's Heart. It's us on elected passing policies. It's the person that's active in caring for people in their community. We all have a stake in this, and so a recovery-oriented system of care makes sure that we're delegating who those people are. We're partnering with them so that we can have clean, vibrant spaces in Clackamas County. This is the worldview. So if you see us pass a policy, it will line up with this. It will, and some of this language is innovative in Oregon. Very much we only hear about harm reduction, which sometimes is all harm and no reduction, and we only hear about housing first, which actually never treats people. People need and deserve real treatment so that over time they will be self-sufficient, free, and have hope in their lives. I just think that many municipalities and government agencies all up and down the West Coast have failed to do that. This is a novel idea in the Portland metro area. This resolution matters. We just passed it. So I don't know how much time I left. I'm told only 15 minutes. Oh, my time's up. Thank you. No, you can ask any of my colleagues. I can be one of many words. Yeah.
Great. Priority number one, higher podiums in the county. All right, good job, Ben. It's always a pleasure to follow an excellent public speaker. So here we go. My name is Bronson Rueda. I'm the County Assessor, and I'm going to talk today about the property tax system. And I also want to thank all the voters for supporting me in my first election process here in Clackamas County and anywhere for that matter. But before I begin, I want to talk about my biography that I submitted for this event. Hopefully everybody had a chance to read it. After I submitted it, my wife and kids had a chance to read it, and they complained that I didn't mention them at all in my biography. So I have a wife and 2 kids. They're 11 and 13. They're both daughters. And every day I don't know what they're talking about. And more every day I'm trying to understand why they are upset with me. So if anyone has daughters, you feel me. You feel me on that one. Was anybody at the January 18th inauguration for the newly elected officials this year? Anybody there? One person? Okay, good, only one. So this is going to be a repeat too. This is going to be a repeat. And probably the last time I'll say this tidbit. It's supposed to be funny, but it's getting stale, but hopefully stay with me here. So when people first meet me, they typically ask me 3 questions. And so I'm going to provide those answers for you right now. Answer number 1, I'm 6'5" and 3/4. My kids say, just round up to 6'6". And I'm like, no, I'm 6'5" and 3/4. I pay attention to detail, and I like numbers, and I think that's important in my business. Answer number 2 is, yes, I do play basketball. But it's recreational. I'm 51 now, and I play on a 45 and over pickup night in Canby. My kids call it old man basketball night. Answer number 3 is the weather up here is the same as it is for you folks. So those are the 3 questions I get asked the most. On to, do I have a clicker? On to the presentation. Big button, right, Ben? All right, assessment and taxation. So I have 4 main functions that I'm in charge of. First is appraisal. In the county, we have 170,000 accounts that the county is responsible for appraising. We have additional accounts, central assessment accounts and state appraised industrial accounts that down in Salem they appraise and they send us the values. If you want to know more about that, I can tell you. But we're responsible for valuing about 170,000 accounts. And we value each account every year. And we do that using a variety of appraisal techniques, but mostly mass appraisal. And mass appraisal is essentially using sales and trending the values of each property. And number 2, once that appraisal process is finished, we lock in those values, and that's considered assessment. And that's done around the mid-October timeframe. Then taxes are calculated based on district tax rates, and the tax roll becomes official, and we send that tax roll to the clerk to record it. Then we have everybody's favorite, the collection of property taxes. Did I just get louder? The collection of property taxes. Taxes are due November 15th. Any property owners out there that enjoy November 15th? Vern, we got raising your hand for everything. Great. Do you have $5 I can borrow? Raise your, no? November 15th, and once taxes are collected, we send that money to the treasurer, and the treasurer distributes that money to all the taxing districts based off of our distribution schedule. Finally, the main function we do is mapping. We map all the property in the county for assessment and taxation purposes, and we work closely with the county clerk to get recorded documents from them, and we use those recorded documents for legal descriptions in order to help us map. It's not exciting, but that's what we do. I think it's exciting. All right, this is a complicated slide. This is our timeline for the year, and people always want to know, when I talk to them on an individual basis, what do you think my property is worth? What's the market doing right now? That's why I have this timeline up here, because we work with historical property. So if you want to know what your property is worth right here and right now today, our office isn't going to know that, because we deal with sales that happened over a year ago in order to value property. If you take a look up here at the top of our timeline, the fiscal year and the property tax year follow the same timeline. July 1st through June 30th is our property tax year. We often refer to it in 2 years, so 2022 to 2023. That's our property tax year and fiscal year that we're in right now. Notice over here to the left, January 1st, that is our assessment date. And so when you receive your property tax bill, follow on the calendar way over here in November. When you receive that property tax bill in November, that value is based off of a point in time on January 1st. And so if we have a large fluctuation of value change, either up and down in this time frame, people can often get confused if they think, well, the market's really tanked or the market's really appreciated. Why isn't my value higher? Why isn't my value lower? Well, a lot of that is due to our assessment date being 10 months prior on January 1st. And on top of that, the data that we collect for this January 1st assessment date can be up to a year in arrears of this date. So on January 1st, 2021. And so when you get your November tax statement, the data collected to determine that value can be up to a year and a half or more old. And so when people ask me, what's the value of my house? We're working with historical data, so it's very difficult to answer that question when they want to know the here and now. But if you have any questions about the value of your property, we have that in our office or online. If there's something that you want to know that's not online, give our office a call and we can help you find that. All right, now 2022-23 stats and quiz. If we're talking about the 2022-23 stats, what's the assessment date for that tax year? Anybody? No hand up that time. To January 1, 2022. Excellent. My job is done. We've all been educated. Okay, so we don't have the stats yet for 2023-24, so I'll let you know the 2022-23 high-level stats. In that time frame, we had a 17.3% real market growth in our county. And so our county real market value is worth over $110 billion. And real market values, we have 3 different values in Oregon. I won't go into them unless you want to know. But real market value is basically what would a fair transaction be, a real market transaction be if somebody were to offer a seller who's selling and a buyer who's buying, willing buyer, willing seller. That's market value, so $110 billion. In that time frame, there were 32 new subdivisions and over 1,300 new homes. And that is about a regular number in the last five years or so, over 1,300 new homes. Imposed taxes, for the first time, we crested over $1 billion. And so if you recall, I think I said already, we collect 86% of imposed taxes every year by the end of November. So that's a 2-week time period when the taxes are due. Well, 4 week if you want to go earlier in November. So within 4 weeks, we collected 86% of $1 billion. So $860 million came in through our office in a month time period. 2023-24 stats. Now, I told you I didn't have anything, but I do have some insider information with a huge, huge disclaimer. So those keeping track at home, this is a big disclaimer. Right now, we're still analyzing data for January 1st, 2023, but early information, early data indicates that property appreciation that's gone on over the last 4, 5, 6, 7 years is slowing down. In our county, we're seeing anywhere from no appreciation to up to 15% appreciation. And for Oregon City, I'm assuming everyone here lives in Oregon City, is that? Okay. In Oregon City, between 2 and 5% appreciation depending on your neighborhood and where you live. And again, disclaimer, that could change between now and mid-October when we certify the tax roll. Where do our taxes go? Where do our taxes go? So this is on our website, and you may have seen this before, but this is a graph of a breakdown of where, out of each dollar of taxes we collect, what local service does it go to? So you can see up on the, what local service in our county does it go to? In the upper right, schools get 42.99% of each dollar of taxes collected. Down here, miscellaneous, which includes, you can see here, Port Vector, Cemetery, Water Parks, and Lightning, they get 1.88 cents of every dollar collected. The county gets 18 cents of every dollar collected. Now to break this down even further, this 18 cents, here's where the county spends our money. Public safety gets almost 64% of the county money. And assessment taxation, way down here, we got 5.2%. So our budget this year is around $10 million. We impose over $1 billion in taxes, so our cost is less than 1% of what we collect. So when we've been accused of being inefficient before, but I think that's pretty efficient, using only 1% of what we collect. Lastly, I always like to give this plug to e-notices. E-notices is a new product that we have, a new feature for all of our customers, where you can sign up and get your property tax bill online instead of receiving a paper copy in the mail. I encourage everybody to do this if you want to. It saves on a lot of different levels, and you can go into the portal and you can look up your historical property tax bills, and you also get your tax bill sooner than if you were to get it in the mail. Because as soon as we certify the tax roll in mid-October, things go online, so you don't have to wait for your property tax bill to get mailed. Maybe it gets lost, and people don't like to hear this, but if the mail loses your property tax bill, you're still responsible for paying. The law states that there's no leeway there. So I highly encourage you to go with their surefire way and get that e-notice online. The only caveat, if you do sign up for e-notices, you do not get the paper copy in the mail anymore. So it's in either and or. Some people that signed up previously to this year, we had it for business, personal property. They thought they were going to go with both. So I always want to make sure that you know you don't get both. It's going to be an either or, online or paper copy. And that is all I have for you today. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Now, I believe I heard Commissioner West make the comment that the county collected more taxes than they anticipated. So I didn't hear you respond to my rebate comment that I had earlier. Since we have more tax revenue coming in, when can we expect our rebate checks to arrive? Somehow I think I knew the answer to that question before I asked it. But that's okay. We're glad that the county has additional tax revenue. I'd rather you have a surplus than a shortage for a lot of different reasons. So our next speaker today is going to be Oregon City Commissioner Adam Marl. Adam was appointed in 2021 to go ahead and fill the vacancy of Mayor Rachel Lyles Smith, and then he was elected to a 4-year term in November of 2022. A couple interesting things to know about Adam. We are both graduates from Oregon City High School. So congratulations. I'm actually having my 50-year reunion this year for Oregon City High School, so kind of dates how long I've been on this earth. But also, thank you. He's the first Asian American to be an elected official in Oregon City, so I think that's quite an accomplishment as well for you. So with that being said, Adam, share us your vision and your priorities.
Well, thank you, Kent, and I believe I have my 5-year reunion coming up here soon, so maybe I'll see you around. So as Kent mentioned, my name is Adam Marl. I serve on the Oregon City Commission. I'm not a new face, but I am technically a newly elected official. I had to run in November of 22 to keep my seat, and so it's an honor to continue serving this community. And it's been a while since I've been able to come to one of these luncheons. I work in the state legislature, and so now that this busy session has come to a close, I'm really excited to be able to spend some time here during the workday with you all. So just a little bit about me. Like it was stated, I was appointed to the City Commission in April of 2021. Fast forward, or go back just about a year prior, that picture on the left was the first time I ever gave a public comment at City Hall, and it was regarding concerns about our mayor at the time, who was causing some great harm to our community. And so after that public comment, I got roped into leading the campaign to recall him. We were successful in November of 2020. The following spring, we elected a new mayor who was a member of the City Commission at the time, Rachel Lyle Smith. And so then I was appointed to fill her seat in April of 2021. And April 30th of 2021 was actually my last day as a student at Willamette University. It was my last day of classes, and my professor said, "Do you have any fun summer plans going on? What are you doing after school?" And I told her, "I'm getting my hair cut and I'm getting sworn in tonight." And so it was a very busy day. Pictured right there was my first swearing in with the late Honorable Lorraine McNeese, who is dearly missed. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about just briefly is that all of your governments right now are in the process of budgeting. And I know Commissioner Mitchell has some more detailed insights about this, so I'll keep this pretty general. This is something that I had posted to my social media, but we have adopted our 23 to 25 biennial budget, most notably without increasing taxes. And Oregon City is pretty unique. We're one of about 8 cities, I believe, out of 241 cities in the state of Oregon who have not yet reached our Measure 50 maximum permanent tax rate. So we're kind of an outlier across the state, and we have not raised taxes in quite a while, and I'm really proud with how we've been able to keep up the level of service to this community. And so coming into this, I knew there would be conversations about the increased cost of doing business as a government, definitely with labor and inflation. But my response was simply that for all the costs that are increasing for us, it's happening exactly for every single working family and retired citizen in this community. And I wanted to make sure that we gave them enough relief to make it once we get through this bout of inflation, hopefully. And so we did not increase taxes, and I'm very proud of that, and we have a budget to be proud of as well. So next, I know that this is something of interest to this organization, urban renewal. Where do we go from here? And I will tell you, I don't know. Next. No, I'm just kidding. So we just had our urban renewal ballot measure in the May special election, which unfortunately failed. I was a big proponent of that ballot measure and was very excited for the prospect of a new development on the old Rossman landfill. And for me personally, having been a lifelong resident of this community, going back to my high school days, I remember hearing my friends say, "I can't wait to get out of here because there's nothing to do. There are no job prospects. I want to get out of here." And for me, that still rings in the back of my head as a decision maker for this community because I want to make sure that future generations realize the value and the worth of this community, which is already here, to be clear. We have immense history and culture to be proud of here in Oregon City, but there's a lot of room for us to be growing. And so while it may not necessarily take the form of what was proposed at the old Rossman landfill, I can tell you that as an Urban Renewal Commission and as a City Commission, we have a lot of conversations ahead of us to discuss what the future of urban renewal will look like. And so whether that looks like investing in some smaller projects maybe to show the community what urban renewal is, I think that's one of the struggles with urban renewal is explaining what it is. And so trying to figure out better ways to demonstrate how it works and the benefits that it brings to our community may be an avenue we go down. But what I can tell you is that your Urban Renewal Commission and your City Commission does support urban renewal. And for me, I do absolutely believe that it has a role to play in the future of this city, because again, I'm not going to give up on the prospects of economic development and housing options so that young people like me can actually continue affording to live here and seeing the value in what this community has. And so that brings me to the next topic, which is the homelessness crisis and the housing issue. And so this relates to what I was just talking about as it relates to affordability. We've all been seeing this issue come to the light in recent years. It's always been there, but it's becoming increasingly prevalent, and especially in Oregon City as the county seat of Clackamas County, we've been hit especially hard. And so for me, my philosophy on this is pretty simple, which is that homelessness is a housing issue and that housing is a supply issue. So first on the homelessness topic, as Commissioner West mentioned, we've got a lot of dollars that are finally coming out the door and doing some good work, and I'm excited to see those action items that are finally going to be able to be accomplished. And we've got some great community leaders, I see some of them right here, who are on the ground every single day taking care of it. But I just wanted to take this moment and give a huge shout out to our police department. They have done a great job innovating and responding as this crisis has come to the forefront of the public conscious. This isn't something that police departments are usually doing, but we have innovated in Oregon City. We hired the first behavioral health specialist in the county, I believe, and other cities have followed suit. And I believe Commissioner Mitchell has some more details on some recent updates as it relates to the housing crisis and our police force. But I'm really proud of the work they've been able to do. And as it relates to housing, there is no doubt that we need to build more units. We need more supply here. And that's an uncomfortable thing to hear for some people. And as I've said many, many times, and I always will, I understand when people have those concerns because those are the neighborhoods that I've been surrounded by for my entire life. But for me personally, again, wanting to make sure that people who want to live here have the opportunity and the privilege to live here is important to me. And so having multifamily housing in the places where it's appropriate and having mixed-use development finally in Oregon City is something that I'm really excited about, and that's another reason why I think urban renewal is going to be a potent tool to achieve multifamily housing and mixed-use development that brings communities together with their shopping and their retail and their eating opportunities. So next, I wanted to talk about this tolling pause. I represent the city on these issues, and as an employee of the legislature, get to deal with this in my day job, and then I get to come home for a little bit and then go to city commission meetings and deal with it at the night as well. And so this tolling pause is definitely something that would not have happened had it not been for our local governments standing together, united about this crazy proposal. But I also want to caution us not to rest on our laurels about this pause. And the reason I put pause in quotes is because we just had a meeting that was alluded to in Commissioner West's presentation. And we heard from ODOT directly that they're not calling this a pause. They're still going full steam ahead with their plans. And so the same needs to be happening with us as Clackamas County leaders and community activists and elected officials. For me, as someone who works on campaigns and thinks politically, I don't see this as anything different than a way for some swing seat legislators to be able to hold onto their seat in the next election until this becomes an issue where the public no longer cares about it because they think it's been taken care of. And so that's where I am. I'm keeping this at the top of my list, and I really hope that you will too. Because if we let it go by the wayside and we let this pause creep up on us in 2026, it's going to happen. So we need to be paying attention, and I really urge you to keep aware on these issues. And then lastly, I just wanted to talk about an issue briefly, a pet issue of mine. Full disclosure, I do not have children, although I do believe I'm probably the closest to have been in childcare myself in this room. But childcare is the economic development challenge of our time. And what I'm talking about is the simple fact that now that we've been in this post-pandemic world for a little bit now, we're seeing the employment parity between men and women not going back to where it was, where we had achieved gains that had not been seen in decades. And part of that reason is because too many women, mostly women, are being forced to stay home with their kids because they can't afford quality childcare. And so we know in Clackamas County that we are a childcare desert. And when you look at the formula and the model for childcare, which is you want strong and strict regulations to make sure that our children are safe, you want to make sure you have credentialed, educated professionals who know what they're doing, but we also want it to be affordable. And that doesn't pencil out. That equation does not pencil out without public investment. And so for me personally, this is an issue like many others that cities have not traditionally dealt with in the past, but I think it's time that we start looking at it, because if we're serious about economic development, we need to be serious about making sure that everyone who wants to get back to work can go back to work. And for you all as business owners, this is what I'm hearing time and again, is this issue of the labor participation. We can't get enough people to apply. We can't get enough people to be recruited for these jobs. And so if we don't tackle the issue where it's starting, which is people not being able to afford leaving their homes in the first place, then this issue is going to stay with us. And so I just wanted to highlight our Talent Ready Oregon City program, which was in our economic development department, which basically partnered job seekers with a navigator of sorts to help them not only with the application and resume portion of the job search, but also the social services like finding childcare. And so that's something that I'm looking forward, this issue in general is something that I'm looking forward to continuing working on. Up in the corner is the logo for the Clackamas County Child Care for All Task Force, which I've been a part of. And I know that there are conversations happening about if there is a public investment, what that might look like. And I will say that, as you may have learned from my first slide about our budget, I'm not a huge fan of taxes, but making sure that we do get our business community engaged and involved early on when we're having a conversation about potentially looking at a bond measure for childcare, making sure that the business community, that our chambers, that our business alliances are at the forefront of those conversations, because nothing is going to be successful without the buy-in of all of you guys. And so that's what I have for you today. My Facebook, if you want to keep up with what I'm up to, I post there pretty regularly, just Commissioner Adam Marl. And with that, I'll pass it on to the next one. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. We appreciate it. But 5 years? Just your 5-year reunion? Boy, you really know how to make a guy feel old, don't you? Ouch. All right, well, our last speaker today is City Commissioner Mike Mitchell. Mike was appointed to that position in October of 2022 when our mayor, Denise McGriff, or who was a commissioner at the time, was elected mayor. He is also the president of the Oregon City Commission presently. He is chair of the Urban Renewal Commission as well. So we're glad to hear from Commissioner Marl that the commission is all for economic development and that the Urban Renewal Commission is not going away because there is definitely a role for urban renewal as a resource. So with that being said, Mike, are you ready?
I've got Matt was nice enough to set me up with
Great.
this. Can you hear me? Because I can't talk unless I can wave my hands. The first time I had a chance to speak to this group was a little over 4 years ago when I actually ran for city commission and lost. And then a couple of years ago, I tried to get appointed to the city commission when Nancy Ide resigned and didn't get appointed. So, but third time's a charm, I guess, or be careful what you wish for. I'm not sure which it is. No, I am sure. I'm enjoying it a great deal. I think we've got a terrific city commission. I'm very proud to be working with the other 4 individuals. It's a hardworking group. We've got a diversity of opinions, but we find a way to, we're all outspoken, we find a way to get our viewpoints out there. We come to a consensus. There's not any voting blocks, you know, maybe 4-1 this time, and maybe 3-2 the next time, or 5-0 if we can get there. But everybody makes sure that their opinions are heard. We respect one another, and we all know that we're trying to move the city forward. And I'm really enjoying that part of it. A couple of things here. Let's see. This is just what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to blow past that. These are the city commission goals. I'm not going to talk about those. They're on the city website. They're basically the same goals as the commission established 2 years ago. We took one off of the list, but they're up there if you want them. At this point, we have kind of not large, but chunks of money set aside in the budget to support each of these goals. And we're still in the process of what the tactics and strategies might be and how we're going to spend that money to move these goals forward. A little bit about our budget, as Adam mentioned, because I think how we spend our money says a lot about what we care about. So these are positions that we added to our budget. One, we added an additional code enforcement officer that'll let us have weekend coverage and also let us get a little more proactive in code enforcement instead of only responding to complaints. If you look at the city survey, and this has been consistent over several surveys, code enforcement is one of the things that we're ranked weaker by our citizens, so we're putting some extra money there. Homeless caseworker, as Adam mentioned, we have a homeless liaison officer and we have a mental health specialist. Both of those positions kind of deal with people in crisis. There's a lot of follow-up that's necessary. If you're going to really move someone out of homelessness, whether it be they need help with Social Security, they need help with the VA, they need mental health. So we added a caseworker position that can do some of that back-end work so that our 2 other specialists can help people who are really in crisis. Additional parks maintenance, we all know in Oregon City we have a parks maintenance backlog issue. So we added 1 additional parks maintenance person in the first year of the biennium and a 2nd additional person in the 2nd year of the biennium. Library staffing improvements, presently only about a third of our, let me say that another way, 2/3 of our library employees are in on-call positions. They don't get benefits, they don't have a set schedule. We've been able to add additional money into library funding so that over half of our library staff, not much over half, but over half will be benefited employees rather than on call. And we added an assistant city manager position. That says 2nd year of the biennium. I was off a little bit. It's actually 2nd half of the 1st year of the biennium, so January 1st next year. The administrative load, making sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed of an operation this size, we just need some help in that area. No reflection on what Mr. Conkle does, but it's a hell of a job. And so we're adding that. And it's actually a position that we had before, and we're just going back to adding that back into the budget. My goals, I support all the city commission goals. But some things that I'm concerned about, one is increasing public involvement in education. And everybody talks about more public involvement. I underlined education on purpose because I think there is a woeful lack of understanding and knowledge in our community about how city government operates, about how people can get involved, about how they can make a difference. And if they don't know how the process works, there's no way that they can make meaningful comment and help us move the city forward. So that's a focus. Jared Lyman, our communications manager, is doing a terrific job. He's got a podcast series up now inside City Hall, tackling a different topic each week. We created a Traffic 101 presentation that explains how traffic impacts are measured in new development. So we're making gains in that area. Excuse me. I went to an Optimist Club meeting this morning, and I thought I was drinking decaf, but I don't think I was. So if I'm a little jumpy, I'm sorry. Oops. Back one. I think it's important that our city commission speaks as one voice. I talked about building a consensus. If you look at the city org chart, 2 people report to the city commission, our municipal judge and Mr. Conkle. And that's who the commissioners need to work through. They don't need 5 bosses, they need 1. So this is the way I manage my own work on the commission and trying to help, I shouldn't say it that way, I won't say it that way, but I think that's critical to us. And our citizens need to know as well. They need to hear one voice from us. Establish a long-term funding solutions for parks. And I meant to say off the bat a little bit of a disclaimer that these are my comments. Some of them may be a little politically incorrect or politically dangerous, but I'm in an appointed position, so I don't have to worry about that quite as much. We know we've been kicking the can down the road too long on parks funding in Oregon City, and it's going to take something additional. It's either going to need to be a bond, it's going to need to be a parks maintenance fee, or possibly a parks district. We just can't continue to starve our parks. We've got a $20, $30 million backlog. We just can't continue to do that. We have to find a long-term solution. And finally, as Commissioner Marl mentioned, determine what the future is of urban renewal in Oregon City. And I believe that includes determining what the legal status is of Section 59 of our charter. And again, politically incorrect. I don't think a public vote on urban renewal projects makes sense. Thank you. You're essentially shutting down urban renewal because it's a very rare developer who would be willing to spend the time and the money and the energy in order to get a presentation to the point where they could ask for urban renewal money with the chance that they might get turned down. And we saw what happens. It's just not good public policy. Yes, we need to listen to the citizens. We also need to take the long view and lead. And this is one. And it'll be up to the courts. And whichever way it turns out, we're going to deal with it. Obstacles, concerns. And number 1, tolling and the so-called pause. I got an email yesterday. The ODOT is presenting tomorrow to the Oregon Transportation Commission a new funding plan. They were asked to do that by the governor because there's a financial impact of not collecting the tolls up front. They are going to propose or state that the widening of I-205 from the Abernathy Bridge to Stafford Road is on an indefinite pause. And because of that, by federal law, they can't toll that section. So their proposal that they're presenting tomorrow is to toll, starting in early 2026, the Abernathy Bridge. And if you want to destroy downtown Oregon City and downtown West Lynn, toll that bridge only. And think about how many people are going to divert in order to avoid that toll. We have got to keep the pressure on that. It could destroy our downtown. I'm not going to talk much about that because Commissioner West very eloquently spoke to the challenges of homelessness. It's a regional issue. We need to be part of a regional solution. We don't have the resources to fix it on our own. We can do our fair share, but it needs to be a regional solution. Reuse of the old courthouse. I bent Commissioner West his ear a little bit over that. The statistics on how much of our downtown business depends on the traffic that goes in and out of that courthouse is pretty staggering. And we can't afford to have that facility sit vacant downtown. And we need a seat at the table on what goes forward with that. Future of urban renewal, I already talked about. My opinion, state overreach on land use decisions. I know that our land use system, oops, excuse me, I didn't want that to show up yet. Or that, hey, I'm going the wrong way. Operator trouble. Operator's trouble. I know that our land use system, that our process in Oregon City isn't perfect. We can make improvements. I don't think that we want the state telling us how that needs to be done. We're better off to do it here locally. There were unique things about the geography of Oregon City, the fact that we're a pass-through traffic community with a limited number of routes. A statewide decision, one size fits all, just won't work. And I couldn't help, it reminded me of this. Politics is the art of looking for trouble, finding it everywhere, diagnosing it incorrectly, and applying the wrong remedies. Because remember, the same people that brought you tolling are now bringing you housing policy. And that scares me. I hope it works. It scares me. We've had a land use system in Oregon since 1973, and major changes to it in a very short time just scares me. And I wanted to say one thing when I was talking about tolling, and I didn't. Commissioner Savas is doing tremendous work. He has put forward a suggestion, and it always seems to me it just kind of flies off the end of the table and drops, and nobody will talk about it, and that is tolled express lanes as opposed to tolling all lanes of the freeway. But ODOT has this one vision in mind. Hopefully we can get it to move, and thank you for your leadership. When I put this PowerPoint together, Microsoft gives you canned slides, and there was a closing one, and I thought, hey, I hadn't heard that exactly before, but I really liked it. So the way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing, and that's a quote from Walt Disney. And I used to work for a guy who warned about analysis to paralysis. It's sometimes, as the tech world, they talk about move fast and break things. I don't know that we want to break things, but we need to try some things. We need to change the way we do things a little bit and try to move ourselves forward. I think that's it. Thank you for the time. There's contact information if you need it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate you sharing your thoughts and your personal goals and objectives. So with that being said, I was wondering if we could have all four of our panelists come on up and stand behind the podium. I've got several questions. Some are for specific individuals. Others are for the group. All right, well, let's just kind of hitchhike on some of the comments that were made today. This is probably more for Adam and Mike, dealing with Oregon City. Mike, you mentioned in your last comments that you certainly don't want the state to get intervened in the city's business when it comes to land use decisions. And I think we would all agree with that. We would much prefer that the cities have local control. I think when you dig a little deeper into that, the only time when the state gets involved with cities' land use policies, at least under the new laws that were just implemented, is if the cities aren't meeting their growth requirements, or at least a quota for a certain number of new housing starts, that all cities within the metro region now will be kind of evaluated. Are you living up to your fair share? Because some cities are more pro-growth. For example, Oregon City gave up half of the Park Place concept plan, or a good portion of the concept plan, all the land east of Holly Lane and south of Redland Road. And it went to Tigard, where they're doing a 270-acre mixed-use project right now. And the county fought that, but the city, I didn't think the city did anything to try to stop that. Recently, the Planning Commission approved a fairly large residential development. And I heard, Adam, you say supply is the name of the game. We need more units. But the City Commission has now appealed it to the Court of Appeals with taxpayer money to stop that project from going forward, which would increase supply, exactly what you say you need. So can you tell us why the city did that?
There was, in that area, there was an approved master plan, concept plan for that area that was the result of many years, many hours of work, and it was the belief of the city that aspects of that proposal, as presented, did not live up to what was in the concept plan. And we did the concept plan for a reason. And so in my opinion, we're defending that concept plan.
But the Planning Commission did approve it, is that correct?
Yes.
They go by the same rules as the City Commission.
Yeah.
Okay. Just,
Well, first on the point about when the state gets involved, I'd first point out that as a city, we are not developers. And so when the state is giving us these numbers to say you need to have this many housing units by this certain point in time, that's just not realistic for us, no matter how creative we get with reforms and permitting reforms. We're not developers. We're not in the business of doing that. And to the point of the appeal, like I said, it's absolutely a supply issue, but when we're talking about supply, when I'm talking about supply personally, I'm not talking about the tranche of $600,000 single-family homes that were proposed for that area. I'm talking about mixed use, and I'm talking about multifamily.
Just even a broader view on this, I'm going to put on my former Wilsonville City Councilor hat when I did your guys' role in the city of Wilsonville. When House Bill 2001 was passed, there was a lot of work with at least within the minority of the legislature, say, hey, you need to give more local control to cities. Wilsonville is one of those cities that did ask for local control. We have a higher mix of multi-use family and apartments and townhomes per single family homes than any other city in the state of Oregon. We actually have more multifamily than we do single family residences. And we've already far exceeded whatever numbers you gave us to hit before we even got started with this piece of legislation. And the city of Wilsonville was denied any local autonomy on how to grow its housing stock within its boundaries moving forward. And so this one-size-fits-all approach that sounds like Oregon City is trying to battle within the courts is got some flaws in it, because you're taking away the control of the local community who knows the needs of their community better than anybody else. That's why local government's so important. And so I think it speaks to that on a larger role.
okay, great, I appreciate it. Kind of a complicated issue, and one that's going to take more effort on the part of everybody to go ahead and resolve. But I think we would all agree supply is what's leading to the housing emergency and crisis that our governor has already identified. Okay, kind of sticking with Mike and Adam and maybe Ben, and you can go ahead, Bronson, and kind of allude to what the revenue source or property tax revenue stream would be on this. Since the Urban Renewal, is this still on? Yeah. Since the Urban Renewal Commission no longer has the authority to go ahead and generate additional revenue into their fund, what would you like to see take place on the landfill site?
I was an advocate, I was in favor of the development that was brought forth, and I voted for it when I was on the Planning Commission.
Both you and Adam both supported it, I know.
Yeah.
But now that that developer has pretty much stated they're going away, just like CenterCal went away, do you have a vision for that property that you'd like to see take place?
Well, I liked what was brought forward, and hopefully, when we get some legal clarity, we may be able to take another run at it. I don't know. As Adam said, we're not developers, and I think it's zoned mixed use, and so a mixed use development makes sense. Exactly what that looks like depends on the economics of private development.
I would agree with Commissioner Mitchell, and I've said this so many times by now, but again, it's mixed use. That's what I think the future of Oregon City is. That's what this land is zoned for. What Summit had brought forward was an excellent proposal. People were deriding it as a shopping mall, and it was so much more than that, for one simple fact, which is that it had multifamily housing. And that's the other thing that you're going to hear me coming back to time and time again. That is an excellent location for that. It's an excellent location to have additional grocery store options. I was really rooting to have a Trader Joe's here in Oregon City, and I know that the developers had secured a letter of interest from them. So in the end, it's up to what the private market brings to us, but in actuality, until we get this figured out, I don't know anyone will come forward because of the requirement of the vote. And as prices continue to increase to construct anything, it's going to be more and more difficult. And I'm scared and worried that this last vote was one of our last opportunities to do it, but I'm still holding out hope for it.
Anybody else?
I believe they needed around $40 million to mitigate the brownfield site. No local government's going to have an extra $40 million. The reason for urban renewal that we forget is to deal with blight. And that's blight. And there's an asset there that would have brought billions to the region and to the Oregon City and to the county in additional property taxes that now isn't going to come, and frankly partially due because of misuse of local governments with urban renewal for pet projects. And there's a lot of examples across the country where urban renewal was not used, or what the government classified as blight is not really blight. And so there's a trust issue between local governments and the constituents, and urban renewal is real hard to explain. It is real wonky, it's real funky, and the average Joe that's out there trying to just pay their mortgage and get their kids off to school is like, what? And so it's a difficult lift and task, but I don't know of another way, and I'm more than happy to learn it without taking that asset and making it usable again and getting rid of a brownfield and a blight without extensive federal funds, state funds, or urban renewal funds. And because, you know, my mom used to tell me money doesn't grow on trees, and so I don't know how we're going to fix it without those tools.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll just add that I don't have a seat at the table that these gentlemen have. My job is to administer the property tax system. But I will add, some people get confused with urban renewal. They think it adds taxes. It doesn't add taxes. It divides the tax. And so taxpayers are going to pay the same amount of taxes. It's just a matter of where that money goes, either to the urban renewal area or to these services and those districts.
Okay, William, you've got a question. Rather than me trying to read through that one, go right ahead.
It's a consolidation of a couple of them. One, just a point made is that it's a concept, not a plan for development. The concept isn't nailed down any more than the parks concept plan is the actual step-by-step how to do it. This one was written for Commissioner Marl, and because the concept was brought about a smaller project, a smaller urban renewal project to prove to the community, as another commissioner has called it, proof of concept. How would you view the Hilltop Urban Renewal Project, which had an 1,100% ROI? That's kind of a proof of concept, or the downtown storefront improvements. And I think anybody that's been in Oregon City for longer than 10 years can see the difference that urban renewal has made to the Main Street, or the revitalization of the train depot. Are those not proofs of concepts?
I think those are absolutely proofs of concept, but as the assessor just noted, I don't think people understand what they are and how they got there. So that's my simple answer there.
With that being said, Commissioner West, you were in Wilsonville. How many urban renewal districts, when you left Wilsonville, were there?
So in Wilsonville, the city council decides whether or not we're going to do urban renewal. It does not go to the vote of the residents. We were at the maximum allowed legal amount of urban renewal districts. My neighborhood, Villebois, would not have existed without the immense investment from urban renewal. I live in Villebois. Now we have, like I said, over $1 billion of assessed value and return on investment from that work. We also used it very creatively. It's also another term you'll hear is TIF financing. It's tax increment financing. So we wanted to be really, Wilsonville, one of the unique things that it has is in the northern part of the city, it has a robust industrial commercial area, and it was really smart in how the previous electeds and citizens planned that out. And we attracted a biotechnology firm from San Francisco who brought over 200 living wage jobs and a large investment in our community. It was very, very competitive up and down the West Coast, but we used just a little bit of TIF in that one specific old Xerox property when Xerox left it to modernize and update that facility to attract that giant employer with those living wage jobs in a technical bio field. And that was a wild success that now can potentially be replicated in other areas, and it got quite a bit of notoriety because of how smart we did to take care of something that was blighted and dated, to update it with those funds, and it's brought much more value back to the community than it cost with doing the TIF, the tax increment financing.
And what was the maximum amount that Wilsonville could do?
I think it's 25% of the size of that community. I don't remember the exact technical term. We're about to retire a few. They just retired one actually, like last week. One of the older urban renewal districts, and so. Wilsonville's been super strategic and not afraid to use it, and we've watched Wilsonville become a vibrant little suburban community because of that, using that tool. And I think also it allows us to be a little more influential, impactful as a community as we grow, and we kind of get a play in different aspects and field within the region, and sometimes punch above our weight because we've been able to be very smart and wise in how we use those tools, and make the case to the electorate on why we should do it and why. And we keep getting reelected, right? Those people that supported that policy idea kept getting reelected, so the electorate, as they lived and benefited from it, continue to elect those leaders that supported it.
Okay, great, great. I know a few years ago we had one of the representatives from Wilsonville that was behind all the urban renewal districts come and explain it to our membership. I'm curious also, West Linn, well, Oregon City, I believe, was seeking about 44 million in this go-round. And that went down to a vote of the people, as you've shared. Over in West Linn a few weeks ago, they just approved through their council 88 million in urban renewal, without a vote of the people, to go ahead and do infrastructure improvements from the Willamette area to the Arch Bridge. Why is it that Oregon City requires urban renewal to go to a vote of the people?
Okay, well, well, Oregon City is, as I alluded to, we're a unique community, and we're also unique in this aspect as well, in that was it 2016 that the ballot measure went through? There was an initiative petition, so they had to gather a bunch of signatures to get something on the ballot, which would have essentially forced us to retire the district, or if we wanted to do any sort of development, go out for a vote of the people. And so since it was implemented, the courts have ruled that urban renewal is a separate entity from the city of Oregon City. So for the voters to put something in the city charter controlling a separate entity, it doesn't work out. And so we thought that we were going to be finishing up a case, but then comes another one relitigating some things. And so we're still in the process of going through the courts and making sure that their interpretation, which has been consistent, which is that we as a city have the right to do these projects without being hampered by this section of the charter, section 59. That's not to say that public involvement doesn't play a crucial role in urban renewal, but as Commissioner Mitchell stated, it's not good governance to be doing development by a vote of the people. And so this is not something that's easy to explain either, because it's urban renewal and it's under the vocabulary of sending it to the people and giving people the right to vote. But on the other hand, we are elected for a reason, and we're elected to lead, and I think that's part of our duties. So the short answer is because we have a ballot measure that was led by some citizens. It passed very narrowly. The courts have said it's not valid, but because it's still being challenged at higher levels, we're stuck in limbo right now.
Okay, let's hope that brighter people than some of the rest of us will prevail, and you'll be able to get some type of urban renewal program back on the book somehow. Bronson, you feeling a little lonely over here? Are you ready? So you mentioned that, and I think we've seen this nationwide, that house prices have probably peaked. Some areas, there's corrections taking place, areas that went way up real fast. Today I saw where real estate prices have pretty much stabilized and some areas have increased again. What if someone wants to appeal their most recent valuation, how does that process work?
Yeah, sure, thank you. First, I don't think I used the word peaked anywhere
okay.
in what I said. Housing prices, per our data, are still on the incline, and if you're taking a look at Redfin or anything like that, I'm not seeing a whole lot of readjusting any value drops, so yet to be determined. But if you have an issue with the value of your house, you can certainly appeal that value. And I was just talking to somebody about this earlier before lunch. One of our main focuses is to make sure we have the right value on all of our accounts. And with mass appraisal, it is a computation, it's math. And so we take statistics and we put that into formulas, and it creates a bell curve. And so what's going to happen is you have properties that are valued perfectly, you have properties that are overvalued, and you have properties that are undervalued. It's the way mass appraisal works. With 170,000 plus accounts and 10 appraisers, we don't have the ability to value every single account every year. So mass appraisal is used just like every other county in Oregon uses it, and every county in the United States uses mass appraisal. And so if you feel like you're on that high side of the bell curve where your property is too high, you can appeal your value. And when you do that is when you get your property tax statement in early November, you have until the end of the year, December 31st, to appeal your value. And if you have any questions about that, the information's online. If you can't figure it out, that's fine. Give us a call and we're more than happy to help you through it. We don't get mad at people appealing their value. We help them because we realize that some properties are going to be overvalued. It's just the nature of the business, and we want to help right those values to where they should be. So contact our office if you think your value is too high.
And those rebate checks are in the mail when?
Well, so interesting. If your value is too high, we have 3 values in Oregon. We have the real market value, which we talked about earlier. We have the MAV, the maximum assessed value, which is typically lower than the real market value. And then you have what's called the assessed value. And the assessed value is what the tax rate is applied to determine your property taxes. If the real market value is up here and your assessed value is down here, and your appeal results in a value that isn't lower than the assessed value, then you're not going to get the rebate check. You're not going to get it. Unless there are some compression issues, which that's a whole nother Measure 5 thing. So it's called being aggrieved. If you appeal or you think your property value is too high, we'll tell you, well, you can lower the value, but you're not going to get a rebate check because you're not aggrieved. You're not going to get any return of property tax. And we can help you with that. And if you still don't believe us, that's fine. You can send in the appeal paperwork and we'll go through that system. There's a Board of Property Tax Appeals made up of volunteers that hears appeals every year with the county. However, legislation just passed. They're changing the name of the Board of Property Tax Appeals to, I think it's property value something. But the reason why they changed it is because Board of Property Tax Appeals indicates that you're appealing your property tax, Board of Property Tax Appeals, and you're not appealing tax, you're appealing value. You can only appeal your value, not the tax. So give us a call if you think it's too high.
And is it still the values can only go up by 3% a year? Is that true?
So I was just talking about somebody. So there's a lot of misinformation out there. That is not actually a law, or your values can go up more than 3% a year. Through Measure 50, your value can only go up, your tax can only go up, your value, your maximum assessed value can only go up 3% a year with exceptions. Okay, so nothing's written in stone. Your tax can certainly go up more than 3% a year, and there are certain circumstances where that can happen. One of those is if your taxing districts votes in a new money measure, new bond, a new local option. That can increase your property tax more than 3% a year. So there's no law that states your property tax can only go up 3% a year. There is a law that states your maximum assessed value can go up only 3% a year with exceptions. So the Department of Revenue puts on a 3-day class for county appraisers to understand all of this. So if you don't understand this in this 2 to 3 minute dialogue, please call our office and we can do a deeper dive into all this information.
Okay, and I should let everybody know our regularly scheduled time has come to an end, but I still have a few questions I'd like to go ahead and ask if you 4 are still available. But if you need to leave, feel free to go ahead and go. We just ask that you come for our regularly scheduled event from 11:30 to 1 o'clock. But with that being said, I'm going to keep. Oh, well, next month our forum is going to be on tourism. And we've got a great panel that's going to be making that up, which includes our Metro Councilor, Christine Lewis, who will be sharing a lot of updates on the reopening of the Willamette Falls locks, what Metro knows about the Riverwalk and the Legacy Project, and some other tourism activities that Metro is involved with. So hopefully you can attend that. With that being said, this one's for Commissioner West. Recently, as you know, Project Turnkey did not go forward with the hotel there on Sunnyside. And there's been some discussion about possibly closing down the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion program that Gary Schmidt put together and transferring those funds towards the courthouse. I believe, Commissioner Scholl, you were the one that initially brought that motion up, and Commissioner West, I believe you were in support of it, and Chair Smith has now tabled it to a later date. Can you tell us a little bit behind the reasoning that went into that decision?
So for turnkey or for the EDI?
Well, turnkey, and then anything that might be associated with DEI.
Yeah. So on Project Turnkey, I could speak for myself. While I did not support moving into Project Turnkey, I'd been elected for 3 weeks. And I walked into a purchase and sale agreement deal that started before I even took the oath of office. And when I looked at how that impacted that specific local community, that town center area, which in my opinion currently is on life support in many ways, much of my ride-along was around there. There is an increased level of crime. Businesses are really struggling in that area. Town center itself is struggling. I mean, the juxtaposition to that is compare town center to Washington Square. Washington Square every weekend looks like it's Christmas shopping season, and town center is a ghost town now. I remember when I was a kid, it was the place to be, man. You wanted to go to the mall. You know, it wasn't necessarily Lloyd Center or Washington Square. You wanted to go to town center. And so some of that luster, for a number of reasons, has really impacted that area. And I didn't see the risk of this specific asset bringing back that community and that local community. So I personally voted no against town center. However, it wasn't just no and nothing else. It was no, but let's do better. And let's talk about better solutions. We're in the behind-the-scenes discussions about how can we help supplement maybe the navigation center with some type of recovery center. What is actually going to fill the gaps? We still offer a lot of hotel housing temporarily to transition people. So it was no to that, but I thought that the shift to be more creative and innovative and do different is what this board is doing, despite not doing the hotel, the Project Turnkey property. For time's sake, EDI. For me, EDI, equity, diversity, inclusion, often our entities begin to put an overemphasis on immutable traits like race, sexuality, and other things. And so I don't want us to be overly focused on those things, but I want us to be able to treat all of our staff members as individuals that are focused on equality. Equality and equity are two different things. They mean two different things, and so often they get conflated. But I want to have a culture within the county that focuses on merit, fairness, and colorblindness, and I think it will be a better overall culture for the county as a whole as we discuss this issue. I gave quite a off-the-cuff, passionate speech that you could hear. You go back and watch that public meeting. And I don't see this as so much as like, let's abolish EDI. I want to provide oversight, look at it deeply, and potentially replace it with something that's a little less politically ideological and a little less divisive that everybody can get on board with. And I think the principles of merit, fairness, equality, and colorblindness are just those things.
Okay, great, thank you. Recently, in fact, I think it was just this last weekend, there was a confrontation, I believe across the street from here, between Proud Boys and another faction of the Proud Boys is now separated off into another entity of some kind. And a few years ago, down in Clackamas Park, we had a Nazi confrontation of some kind with the local law enforcement. Why do you think this part of our local region attracts these people?
Is that for me or the Oregon City Commissioners?
Everybody.
Do you guys want anybody?
And what can we do to try to prevent it?
Do you want to go?
Yeah, well, I was with you on the first part. The second part's going to be tougher. I think Clackamas County is kind of unusual because it's got liberal pockets and conservative areas as well. So I think there's kind of a natural clash that happens probably more in Clackamas County and a lot of other places. What the answer is, I don't have a great answer for that.
Listen, we need to have a community despite our differences and belief systems that's not so polarized that we're going to go to blows in the streets. It's not productive. It frankly at times is embarrassing. And we need to be able to like speak to those value systems and condemn bad behavior when it happens. And we don't treat people that way. We don't promote those wild extreme viewpoints that cause I can't believe we're having this conversation at an Oregon City business, right? Meeting, but it's unfortunate. So I think as leaders, we can set an example about what's the appropriate term. How do you treat people with dignity? How can we disagree and not be disagreeable? And how can we also listen a little bit better? And sometimes we have to find those areas as local electeds we can tone down the rhetoric and tone down where they might foment things. And so I won't speak to why people sometimes act unfortunately badly. We've seen that throughout many metro areas across the country. I remember 2020 watching, what happened in downtown Portland. We haven't reached those extremes here in Clackamas County, but we must do better in how we treat one another.
I'll just say, as a statistician and a data analyst, I would need to see data to confirm your claims that happens more in this area than not. So until you have that data, I don't know if that's true or
Yeah,
not.
I'm not saying it happens more in this area. I'm just saying, why do you think it tends to happen in this area? And I think, Mike, you alluded to it. We've got quite a diversity of people with different backgrounds, diverse backgrounds here in Clackamas County.
And just really quickly, Oregon City is changing very rapidly. Clackamas County is changing very rapidly. And so I don't know exactly why it seems to be here in Oregon City, but what I do know from having spoken to our law enforcement officers is that, by and large, the people that are fomenting it are not from Oregon City. We don't know why they're choosing Oregon City, but it's important to note that it's not the people of Oregon City who are the problem. We are resilient. We stood up against this kind of hate in 2020 when we recalled our mayor, and we have the most diverse city commission in our history. And so we're standing up and we're trying to be those examples that Commissioner West just talked about how to have civil discussions even when we have disagreements.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Marl. Well, could we give a hand to those that are still here? We at the OCBA can't thank you enough for coming today and preparing the PowerPoints that you had and answering the questions that we threw at you. We don't give them the questions. This all happens live. They don't know what's going to come next. And the thing we appreciate about your willingness to be here is you want to engage with the community. You want to be transparent with the citizens. You want them to hear your answers from your heart, not a canned response that you practice ahead of time when you already know what the question is. So sometimes our questions are a little interesting, but we do that for a reason, to go ahead and get promptu responses from each and every one of you. So again, many thanks. We look forward to seeing you at our future forums, and many thanks to all of you. And again, next month it'll be on tourism. So wear your best Hawaiian outfit that you've got for our July event. Thank you.